Good evening, everyone. Tonight is a regular session of the South Kingstown Planning Board. The date is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. Time is 7 p.m. The first item on our agenda is roll call. Susan Axelrod.
Here.
Joe Murphy.
Here.
Paul Jordan.
Here.
Robin Pothier.
Here.
Peter DiStefano is absent. Liz Karp.
Here.
And Maria Mack is here. Our second agenda item is the consent agenda. This consists of approval of minutes from June 13, 2023 work session and June 27, 2023 regular session, as well as the report of the administrative officer. I would like to pull the second item, the report of the administrative officer, as Jamie has some information for us in that regard. If there are no corrections or comments, would someone like to make a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Liz. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next agenda item is a development plan review advisory to zoning. Garceau request for special use permit to allow household occupancy by 6 unrelated individuals in an existing 6-bedroom home. Is there anyone representing the applicant? Please come up to the mic and just state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Neil Garceau.
And what can you tell us about your
Yep.
request and the background?
Sure. I'm here. I've owned the property for a few years. I'm here requesting a renewal, as mentioned, for the 6-bedroom, 3-bath home I own at 239 Old North Road in Kingston.
Questions from board members with regard to this project? I see you had an approval, and the approval had a lapse in time.
Yes, it did. When I purchased the home, it had the approval in place, and then it expired this past year, so I'm looking for a renewal now for the next 3 years.
And are you aware of any of the criteria that may have been required at the time of the original approval, if any of that has changed, or?
Nothing has changed. There were some requirements regarding the expansion of the parking in front, which had been taken care of by the prior owners. Also, there was a suggestion that there'd be some hedges planted in the front of the property. Those were done by the prior owner as well. And then beyond that, I checked with the police department to make sure that there have been no issues with the house, and they're going to be sending me a letter to that effect because there have been none. And then scheduled for Thursday, the fire chief is going to come out and issue a fire certificate for the house.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go
Are
ahead.
these year-round rentals or student rentals?
These are student rentals during the academic year, and then student rental throughout the summer as well. Currently, I have 3 women who are living in the house for the summer as they've stayed on to study for the summertime.
And how many bedrooms?
It's 6 bedrooms,
6 bedrooms.
3-bath.
So it doesn't really lend itself to a family rental situation. It sounds like too many bedrooms.
I would imagine it probably wouldn't appeal to most families.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I have a question in general. We talk about the 25% lot coverage, and so obviously that doesn't include parking space then, correct? Or is it because it was a pervious parking?
So the zoning ordinance speaks to building coverage,
Okay.
which is limited to the building only. And in a case like this, that mechanism, there's no modification to increase the impervious coverage or lot coverage, even if we had lot coverage, because it's all existing. If they were to be making improvements, if, let's say, they needed additional parking to support, let's say, a higher number of rentals, then that obviously would come into play because they would have to add that. But that's also at the discretion of the planning board, too. The planning board has the right to dictate the surface treatment for parking areas. So they could say, you as the planning board could come to the consensus that you did not want it paved and that you wanted it pervious somehow.
For new.
Or, yes, they'd have to be
renovation.
taking action to add or modify something for that trigger to staff.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Liz?
I was out there looking at the property just because I hadn't seen it before, and you mentioned that some hedges had been planted by the previous owner.
Yes.
They're looking a little spotty out there now. I think the property could really benefit from the enhancement of some planting at the front, at the stone wall. I think that's
Well,
something we mentioned before.
Right. What I would offer there is that, as you saw, there was the sidewalk, and then there's a little grassy strip, and then there's the stone wall, which is about 3 feet in height. The prior owner planted, the request was that there be some bushes planted adjacent to that. It wasn't clear whether they were in front of it or behind it. What I would offer, though, is as you pull out of the property, any bushes that would be planted to the right or left would be it would impede the vision, particularly on Old North Road, especially when Flag Road, which is right around the corner of that parking lot, on the hour empties a bunch of cars. And as you pull forward, if there were bushes there, you'd have to be looking over them or around them, and I think that would cause a dangerous situation. So I think what the compromise was, as you can see to the left there, as the cars come out, you have to pull a little bit to see if anyone's coming down the sidewalk. So if there were bushes planted right where the cursor is pointed now, it would impede, as that's the well-traveled road, particularly when the parking lot at Flag Road is exiting. I think it would be a dangerous situation if you made anything higher than that wall. And what I would offer further is across the street from there, there is the side of that house, so they're not seeing that, and then a little bit further down, it's just woods. So from a visual perspective, I think that, with the stone wall is actually probably more attractive than having bushes there that could potentially cause a situation that might be dangerous.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Jamie?
Jamie Rabbit, I'm not sure I agree with your statement that landscaping was planted that complies with the prior approval. Can you clarify what landscaping was planted? Because I've been on site. What do you feel, how do you feel you comply with the prior approval? Behind the wall here, there's, to,
Bushes there. I don't know how much it would add from an aesthetic standpoint beyond the historical wall that's already there. And I think, if anything, it might create a dangerous situation. But I'll leave that up to others to determine.
as the planning director and the AO, I do not see how this property complied with the prior approval. There was a requirement for a landscape architect to prepare a plan, for the AO to approve it. We have nothing on file to that fact.
No, I was just going to echo the same thing. I was actually looking at the pictures that were provided. The two pictures, kind of looking at the parking lot where you can see your neighboring properties, and it looks pretty bare as far as landscaping goes. I'm not sure if those other houses are single-family or if they're also rentals, but I think the fact that you have 6 cars coming in and out justifies landscaping to block the headlights of the cars to the neighboring properties and to establish a boundary with, especially with so many people living there. So there's people on this board much better at landscaping than me, but I would say that I believe that additional landscaping should be required.
Joe, are you talking about landscaping just internal to the site as far as the stone wall, or are you talking about in the property line?
So I'm looking at the property line,
Okay.
as well as, I think the front could benefit from it, and I think that the community would benefit from it as you drive down the road to not necessarily see so many cars there, maybe a little bit of landscaping to dress that up. But I am also talking about the property lines from the street back on both sides, where the parking lot is, to block those headlights.
Right, and you can see to the left there, there's large bushes. So if cars pull into the parking lot and pull into the left 3 spots, there are large bushes there, and actually, I think the individual, I don't know how recent this picture is, he has a camper that's parked right there. Right, and there's tall grass. This picture obviously is dated because the house has been painted a couple of years ago since then. If you go down further, if you're heading, I guess you would be heading south. If you look left, as the cars pull in, there's some kind of large, kind of grassy bushes there that.
Can I just,
Mr. Garceau?
Go ahead,
If
Paul.
I may, real quick, Mr. Garceau?
Oh, Jay, and then Paul.
Mr. Garceau?
Yes.
If you could just mind the mic hitting your, we are
sorry.
we're recording this, so that'll kind of,
Okay.
so just to back up a bit, Planning Director just said, and I'm looking here, TRC met on July 12th, and there was a requirement to submit a landscaping plan. Was that conveyed on July 12th?
Yes, at the TRC meeting,
Okay, and we don't have that before us now.
correct.
So it seems like we're missing a piece that we need to go forward.
I think what you're hearing tonight, Mr. Jordan, is the applicant feels he's complied with the requirement of the regulations.
Well, I will take your word that he has not,
I have been on.
as the AO and the planning director. So it seems that we need to continue this or table it. I'm not sure what the right,
well, if I
Can
may,
Are these pictures current, or are these old?
They were submitted by the applicant. My
Those are
assumption is-
pictures that I took in the early spring.
Of this year? Okay.
Yes, and, you know, one of the items that was pointed out before was, and I wasn't sure exactly what to take pictures of, was that there'd be a fence installed with the garbage cans kept behind it so that it wasn't viewable from the street, and that's why I had taken that picture as well, so that you could see that.
so staff had a conversation with Mr. Garceau, because Mr. Garceau had concerns that he didn't have the fire department inspection yet, and he didn't have a few of those items from TRC. I had advised that, that it would be okay for him to come forward, knowing that this is an advisory DPR and then it's going to the zoning board. So if the board had conditions that they would like to see, you could implement them as suggested conditions for the zoning board to consider, because it's their approval that actually carries in this situation.
thanks, Jay.
That makes sense, Jay. So if the applicant comes forward with some kind of planting plan, then who would actually review the plan? Could that be the administrative officer prior to it being sent to the zoning board, or would that be the members of the zoning board?
So I believe what happened here was a change in staff, and somewhere along the line, the requirement for the landscaping in reference to administrative officer was not adhered to, something that we are, as Jamie will attest to, we are correcting. So yes, it would be subject to the administrative officer if that is the condition that the planning board puts forward and the zoning board adopts.
Understood. Susan?
Hi. At the last TRC meeting, one of the town staff folks had said they had called the police to ask for a report from the police about any activity at the house. Has that been submitted yet?
That was one of those items, the request, Mr. Garceau indicated to me that the request had been made, but he had not received anything from the police chief yet.
I think Jamie Gorman had also asked for, he called the police also. So can we put as a condition that that be included with our
Absolutely.
zoning package?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So it seems to make sense from what I've heard from planning board members that we add a condition that a landscape plan be developed that meets both the side yard areas as well as the area probably internal to the stone wall. Makes more sense because of the site distance issue that Mr. Garceau brought up.
Yes, I agree with that.
Madam Chair, if Mr. Parker can just go back to the Google Earth Street View. You'll see an adjacent property just to the north, that landscaped in front of the wall.
Yeah, there might be, it's a little difficult to tell from this view what the actual width of that area is, and it looks like those are perennial flowers rather than shrubs, which means that
They
6
could
or
do
7 months from now will
spirea,
look
they
like
could
nothing.
do something. They could do spirea, they could do,
some kind of appropriate shrub.
that will stay under 3 feet and not affect
That would
sightline.
be important that it was. What about on the other side of the wall? Is there, Mr. Garceau, do you have any idea how much planting space there might be?
Behind the wall?
Yeah, because if you had sufficient space, then it would also protect the plants, and obviously, we're not looking for a hedge that's going to impede sight distance.
What you're seeing on the front side of the wall, that strip there is, there's an equivalent amount of land on the other side that could be appropriate for planting. Currently, there are 2
Yeah.
hedges there, but they're low. And I had, when I was clipping, I had clipped them lower to increase the sight line, but there's only 2, and they're about this big.
Okay,
So,
And
if, it would have to be, something that would be safe, but that also softens the parking area, if that's what you're interested in. A perennial, I don't know if that would serve the purpose as what's to the left, because obviously that just blooms in the season.
exactly.
But
And where do you put your snow when you need to plow the driveway?
excuse me?
Where do you put the snow when you plow the driveway?
The tenants just clear the snow and they'll put it in front of their cars. Since I've owned the property for 3 years, I provide 1 shovel. I don't know if there's been any substantial snow that they've had a problem with where to put it. But basically, they just move it out of the way to access their
I
automobiles.
see.
So I have a question about the landscaping requirements out front and what the purpose of that landscaping is. I think the stone wall looks like it's in fine shape compared to the rest of the stone walls on Old North Road. I think what I would be more interested in is shielding the parking lot, where planting sedum in front of the wall or any other low shrub isn't going to achieve what I would think would be our goal, would be to break up the look of the parking lot. So planting sedum or any other shrub that's the same height as the wall, and the wall's in pretty good shape, doesn't seem to perform what I would be looking for in front of the house, is something taller or something to break up that look of a parking lot.
I agree with that.
Madam Chair, I think the intent was originally that a landscape architect prepare a plan. Sightlines measured 10 feet back from the edge of traveled way. That stone wall is plus or minus 10 feet from the end of the travel way. So again, there are opportunities to landscape, whether it be and the intent would be to soften the amount of parking as you pass by on the street. And I
Something to
believe,
cover the wall in front of the wall won't soften the parking, it'll soften the wall, which the wall's pretty nice and consistent with the street.
and again, the language in the original approval was screening for the parking.
Right.
And
If I may, I think a little discussion should be had on the the grasses that were specified in the plan from Mr. Garceau as well, because this is the plan, I believe, that went to the zoning board last time. Is that correct, Mr. Garceau? This was the original plan. So you can see in this area, they've demarcated the existing trees and identified an area for seagrass relocation all along the sides of the parking lot in an attempt to screen the cars as they're parked. But when you look at this picture, it kind of looks rather sparse. So,
And this is from at least 4 years.
yeah, this is from September 2019.
Mr. Garceau, you submitted current photographs that show little to no landscaping. They're your photographs that you submitted with your application.
Well, yeah, and nothing is full. This is very early in the spring. If you were to go there now and you look to the left of the house, there are big grass bushes growing, and there's a camper that he parks there year-round, which
Screening
basically
is intended.
serves as a screen. Oh, the camper is in the picture actually there. And those have all filled in, so it's very full right now. So you can tell that there's
I'll
a
ask
camper
you a
behind
quick
it, but
question.
it's much.
Where is the screening in that photograph?
It's not, because it's not a full, because
Thank
this
you.
is in the spring before everything became foliated, so you can see right through it. If you were to go there now, you would be able to discern that there's a camper behind the bushes, but you'd really have to look.
Mr. Garceau, are you talking about the hedge, or are you
I'm talking about in front of the white car and the blue car, currently there's a thick.
Madam Chair, instead of belaboring this point, it's staff recommendation that they prepare a landscape plan prepared by a landscape architect to meet the intent of screening from Old North Road as well as the abutting properties for the commercialization of a single-family home as an apartment rental for student housing.
And
That
that's-
was the original approval motion, and we support that motion. Grasses that are cut back by the owner do not form full permanent year-round screening. And again, in those photographs, they're cut to a foot.
And it's the year-round screening.
It's
that
a
we're talking-
year-round
It
screening
needs to,
issue.
yeah.
So
So the intent actually dictates the plants that are chosen in this.
correct. And again, it can be a mix. I don't think the intent is a solid hedge, but the intent is screening to soften it, and that's not 4 months out of the year, in my professional opinion.
So we could add that as a condition of approval.
And just to be clear, we're not talking about, as always, a wall of arborvitae.
Correct.
What would be the alternative?
They go beyond 3 feet also.
Sorry, so what you have for grass there, so at this time of year, is that like a miscanthus that's like 6 feet high in this mountain of grass? Or is it a low, like that looks like high summer when this was taken. Are they low thigh-high grasses, or are they the gigantic 6-foot miscanthus grasses that are, you know?
Now they're much larger and much more bushy than what you see there. Actually, this is a good picture there. You can see the bushes that are blocking the camper now are much larger and thicker. But yes, to your point, in January, it's transparent through those. But that's there now. And your other question, the grass that's there, they're much, it's like, I don't know what you call it, elephant grass or whatever that might be. It's the big grasses are in front of those vehicles now.
So without getting into further minutia, it appears that the condition that has been suggested would help you to comply with the intent of the approval, and a professional landscape architect would be able to choose appropriate species that would be year-round enough to, again, provide for a screening and softening. So that's one condition that we have agreed to. The other one is the police department report, and was there something else as well? Did that include the fire?
They were two separate, the fire inspection and the police report.
So as we are advisory in this particular situation, we do have 2 draft motions. And on the first draft motion, we would add three and 4, or was that going to be an additional one, Jay, with the police and the fire as separate suggestions or requirements? Or can they be combined into one?
Yeah, they can be combined into one. There's no distinction between making them two separate.
And do they go under the first motion or the second motion? We're saying that zoning shouldn't consider this until these things are approved by the administrative officer.
Well, I think you would say that you would motion for approval subject to the following conditions, outlining those conditions. Now,
Okay.
a belt and suspenders approach, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, would be to include it in both motions, the conditions in both motions, as part of your DPR approval, and then part of the recommendation to the zoning board.
Or maybe in the second motion, we just add something that says subject to, yeah. Conditions of motion 1.
Am I correct in assuming that the zoning board of review notice of decision is incomplete? Right, we get to the bottom of the page and,
Yes, in the copy that was presented, it was missing a second page.
okay.
So, Madam Chair, just for clarity on the landscaping, perhaps some suggested language. The landowner shall be required to submit a landscape plan prepared by a registered landscape architect to prepare a screening plan for the northern and southern property lines, as well as a screening plan along the frontage. Plant materials shall be selected not to inhibit sightline associated with the existing driveway.
And to provide year-round screening.
Both sides, right? We wanted to make sure
Yes.
that the property line on both sides.
North and south side.
North and
You
south,
said
yes.
north and south.
Okay.
And again, we would be looking for year-round.
And I'm not clear as what was concluded as it relates to the stone wall in the front?
Well, that will be in the front of the parcel, which would be to the west, and it would,
On the street
that would be
side?
up to, yes.
I
You
thought
would
we-
receive guidance from.
I believe the suggestion that Jamie put forward was the landscape architect would determine what would be appropriate. So I'm sure they wouldn't,
Best bet. That way you'll be spending your money wisely and you'll have long-term landscape.
Okay.
Are we saying we want to see the stone wall, or we don't care?
Behind it, just to soften that parking lot.
That's what right, I think that's what he just asked. Do we want it in front or behind the wall?
Probably have a wider range of choices if it's behind the stone wall, because it will be less subject to salt, pedestrian, and so on. But again, that would be up to the landscape architect. So we have the first draft motion, which begins on page 2 of staff comments, as revised. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make
Yeah,
that mo-
oh, Joe will do it.
I'll make that motion. The South Kingston Planning Board hereby grants advisory development plan approval to Neil Garcia to allow household occupancy by 6 unrelated individuals with existing single-family dwelling units located at Cessus Plat 24-1, Lot 40, located at 239 Old North Road, as depicted on the plan entitled Survey and Location Plan, prepared by Bruce Donnelly, Deborah Collins, location 239 Old North Road, Assessors Plat 24-1, Lot 40, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, dated November 7th, 2018, with revisions through June 2nd, 2019, prepared by East Greenwich Surveyors LLC, 1050 Main Street, Suite 31, East Greenwich, Rhode Island, 02818. This approval is based upon the following findings of fact and conditions of approval. Findings of fact A through E, conditions of approval 1 through 4, with 3 reflecting the discussions of the landscape plan being prepared by a landscape architect, and 4 being the police and fire department reports being submitted.
And just with reference to the language that Jamie stated earlier, specifics as to where the landscaping would be. So we have a motion from Joe. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Second motion.
I'll make that one as well. The South Kingstown Planning Board hereby provides a favorable recommendation to the Zoning Board of Review on the special use permit request for Assessors Plat 24-1, Lot 40, located at 239 Old North Road, to allow household occupancy by more than 3 unrelated individuals with the existing family dwelling unit. The planning board finds that the subject dwelling unit comply with the site design and exterior appearance requirements of the household occupancy for more than 3 unrelated individuals as specified in section 504.14 of the zoning ordinance, subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 4 in the motion above.
We have another motion from Joe. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is a pre-application concept review, multi-household land development project, 485 High Street. Is there anyone representing the applicant?
Good evening. My name's Harrison Bell, and I am proposing 3 apartments to an existing garage in the back of 485 High Street.
Can you give us any more details? I'm sure the board will have questions about, residency and
Yeah, so
price and all that stuff.
there's a 4-unit apartment building right there, and then there's a single-family house on the top left, and then that's the garage in the back. So one of the apartments in the 4-unit is rented through SK Housing. So, yeah, that's it.
Great. This is exactly the kind of smart growth infill that we have all been advocating for quite some time. There's a need for more housing. Makes a lot of sense as to where it should be. Questions from board members?
Can you describe the parking arrangements as well as landscape buffering around the property line, please?
Yeah, so there's about 15 parking spots.
15?
15, yep. 5
Just existing?
exist, yeah. There's 5, most of it's concrete, and there's 5 spaces are crushed stone. Yeah.
Okay, and just landscaping or buffers or?
I mean, there's a tree line in the back, and then on the left, there's a fence that splits the parking lot, the Flats restaurant, from my property.
I can't see, where's the garage there?
It's under those trees, right there, yeah.
Just hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, would you just explain, 15 parking?
15,
Yeah.
I see 15.
How do you get 15?
So there's 4 spaces right there, and then there's 5 where the crushed stone is. You can see 3 cars spread out right there, and then in front of the.
Slow down and.
All right.
4 there, and then you said 5?
This is just a friendly reminder to use the mics when you're talking, so, I don't know if you can use, is it easier to?
If I just-
Yeah,
I
that's
can just
better.
ask the applicant to, again, this is a preliminary discussion, to clarify.
Yeah, this is a
There
very
may be
formal-
room
Yeah.
for X number of cars to park. There are no delineated spaces on this property.
No. Yeah, there's no striping, no. So there's 2 up by the single-family house, and there's 4 by the 4-unit. And then on to the right of that, right there, that's crushed stone. There's 5 spaces there. And then in front of the garage, there's other spaces right there. So total of 15. You could park 4 cars on the back property line right there.
Yes, I have some questions too. So with the configuration you have now, which is 4, 5, 6 families here, how much of the parking is generally used? And I realize that you'll be adding 2 more units, but is there potentially an opportunity to remove some of the paved, well, there's 1 already, and they're going to turn into 3. Can you,
So there's 5 existing, there's 4 units in one building, 1 unit in the other single family, so there's a total of 5 currently.
there's 1 over the garage now.
No.
No.
So we're gonna add 3 to the garage. Convert the garage into 3 apartments. Yeah, 2
Huh.
2 down, 1 up.
Because when I looked at the drawings, it looks like you've got the garage in the back is a peaked roof with an apartment on the 2nd floor?
There's no apartment up there, it's just it's a loft.
Oh,
It used to be, the previous owner ran his business out of there,
yeah,
a concrete business, and that was his office
okay.
upstairs. Yeah.
Thus the concrete in the parking area.
Yeah, so that's why it's
Probably
concrete.
last a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So by adding 3 apartments, do you anticipate needing this volume of parking? Or is there an opportunity here to maybe rein in the parking and create some green space for this complex, some playgrounds, or not
Yeah,
playground? but,
absolutely.
like, can we,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I never want to take parking away, but if you've
Yeah.
got way too much of it, can we rein it in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also wonder, are you renting all the units on the property, or do you have a on-site manager for all the other apartments on the building?
Yeah, I rent them all.
Okay. So there's no one on-site who's responsible for everyone else's?
No.
You do, okay. And then I have another question. Do you know yet your intention and whether or not these will be year-round rentals for individuals here in town, or if this will be a seasonal or academic?
They'll be year-round. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. That's the best answer. I think our town really does need more year-round rentals. Like, we're really short on that. So that's really a wonderful answer. Thank you.
Awesome.
I was wondering if you're going to be able to preserve the tree line when you do your renovations?
I think so, right? Yeah, yeah, the existing, yeah.
I think that would be important to your
Yeah.
neighbors, that
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
even if they're squirrels.
So, Madam Chair, just to provide a little more detail on this, this would come in and be characterized as a multi-household land development project. There's a specific section, Section H in Article 4 of the subdivision regs that deal with those type of developments. There are a number of standards and requirements that are specified, some of which won't be able to be met, such as a 100-foot setback from a public street, and other things that will need to be addressed, such as a 50-foot buffer zone along the street, as well as a 10% open space requirement. This is one of these projects which we've seen quite a bit in the form of multiple duplexes on a single lot that trigger some requirements that don't really apply very well because they're meant to, say, apply to a 12-unit apartment building, one large building where you want it set back. You don't want that street presence. So I'm anticipating there's going to be some waivers that are going to be requested, not at the fault of the applicant, just because of the way the property is set up and the way our regs are built. But there are some provisions in there for some of the details that you are looking for, such as pedestrian circulation on the site, landscaping, open space, things of that nature, which would help soften the overall development. One question I do have before I get into my next statement is the apartment that's rented through South Kingstown, is that deed restricted affordable?
No.
Okay. So because this is increasing the number of units above current regulations, which is 6, they're going to have to they're required to meet 20% affordable. So there'll need to be at least 2 units that are deed restricted affordable going forward. You'll need to determine which ones those are going to be, and then we need to make sure that they're like in kind with the other units as well. But that's another aspect that we didn't really have a chance to talk about or vet. But knowing that we were just having a discussion, I really wasn't too worried about it.
And I think, too, that because this is actually a redevelopment project, not a new build, I think we need to be careful to try to help accommodate the applicant, yet still find ways to go along with the ideals and, as far as a little green space and that kind of thing. But it certainly should be doable.
Certainly, a 100-foot setback from a street is not a good adaptive reuse policy.
Right, exactly.
And you're aware that those deed-restricted units, the rent would also be,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yep.
I didn't finish my sentence, but he seemed to understand, so,
I think this is great.
yeah, I like it.
I think this is a wonderful infill project.
Thank you.
I'm good with the project. When you come back, if you could have the parking lot obviously designed for us to see the spaces, required number of spaces. Also, where the dumpster's going to be. We'd like to see the dumpster on a concrete pad with a fence around it. And then making sure that there's spaces for snow removal and that type of stuff. So all that stuff we'll want to see.
Awesome.
Do you have a dumpster now?
Yeah, there is. It's on a concrete pad. Just there's no fence around it.
And you'll continue, you think, to have a dumpster?
Yeah. It's all the way in the back of the property.
Anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, I think that's it.
I'm sure Jay will let you know about the affordable housing, but they have to be compatible, both in size, number of bedrooms. It's good if they're distributed, not necessarily just in one building, maybe one in one building, one in the other. And then they're compatible as far as the number of bedrooms and size to the market rate units.
And these are all one-bedroom anyway.
Yeah.
That makes it simple.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, good luck. We'll
Thanks.
Thank
see
you.
you sometime in the future. Our next agenda item, which is a pre-application concept review, multi-household land development project, 12 Green Street, there has been a request from the applicant for continuance, so I would entertain a motion to table this item as they are not here this evening.
Is that just a,
It's a pre-application.
it's a pre-application?
Yeah.
I can make a motion to table this item until a further date.
We have a motion from Susan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul.
Just, Madam Chair, for clarity, that would be to your next regularly scheduled meeting. Full meeting of the commission, not a work session.
So that date is?
September,
August.
sorry, August 8th.
Any further discussion? All those in
Claire-
favor say,
Aye. No, go ahead.
Sorry, August 22nd. August 8th is a work session.
okay. August 22nd as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
I just have a procedural question about
Sure.
this conceptual pre-application, that there's a draft motion included with it for combination of, did we forget to do something here?
Well, they asked to have the item continued,
Okay.
so that conversation would happen in the August meeting. Next agenda item. Designation of TRC member for the August 9th TRC meeting. Is there anyone able to attend?
I think I'm up.
All right, good, Robin. You do get your choice of morning or afternoon.
Morning, what day of the week is it?
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Morning?
Morning, okay.
Jamie brings coffee and donuts if you do morning, so.
Very good.
So is that a 9 o'clock in the planning
9 a.m.
department?
9 a.m.
In this chamber?
Next agenda item is a letter received from the Historic District Commission requesting a meeting to discuss comprehensive community plan actions 1 through 6. We have a letter in our packet. And this discusses review and revise where applicable all existing policies and regulations for protecting historic resources within the planning and development review process. We have not met with the HDC in quite some time. It's a very good idea. So that's something, Jamie, that you can schedule.
So we would, our intention, if it's okay with the planning board, would be to coordinate with the Historic District Commission to look at your work session either in August or on August 8th or September 12th.
And we have the chair from the HDC in the audience this evening. I don't know if you want to elaborate or just give general support.
Just very briefly, I was
Start with your
swimming,
name,
and
Murray.
excuse me, my ears are still filled with water, so if I'm screaming or if I'm speaking too softly, let me know. Murray Gates, the chair of the Historic District Commission. Thank you for considering this request. As the chair, Ms. Mack, has mentioned, it's been far too long since we've had an opportunity to coordinate with this group, and in fact, get in front of the town council, which we're trying to do as well. Really, it's a campaign about trying to refresh everybody's memory about what the HDC is, because I think when you're not heard occasionally, you slip from people's minds. So this is an opportunity for us to refresh some of the things that we're trying to do. And yes, there are some specific action items that are in the comprehensive plan that we'd like to address that require and have called for collaboration between the HDC and the planning board. So that's the primary purpose of what we'd like to meet. But behind that, there is this theme that we're trying to get out of the HDC as being more than just Kingston Historic District. For all of us who love the Kingston Historic District, it's still core to what we do. But beyond our regulatory responsibilities, we care and have an advisory capacity for all of the historic and cultural resources within the town of South Kingstown. So again, it's been our lack of being noisy. It has nobody else is at fault. It's our responsibility to get in front of groups like yourselves to remind you that when you have an opportunity to address an application or a project that has a historic building or cultural resource, that we're there for you. We're a resource for you to help you make smart decisions on how the town can continue to protect and preserve historic resources. So don't forget us, we're out there. And
Thank you, and I'm sure you are aware of and pleased with the fact that the historic tax credit program has been extended by the General Assembly this session.
and money given to the program, additional?
Yes,
Excellent.
yes, so it's continued.
I'm not
For a
sure I
year.
heard that. That's great. Nice to hear that.
All right, thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is a review and approval of CDBG grant application for consistency with the South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan. Jamie?
Madam Chair, thank you. I want to thank also Brian Wagner, who's worked very hard with town representatives on this program. There is a competitive round coming up with the state of Rhode Island for community development block grants. The town is looking at 4 projects, and those 4 are roof replacement at the Kingstown Library at just over $100,000, the renovation of the senior center parking lot at $250,000, and then those are the 2 municipal projects. And then we have 2 nonprofits also applying. That would be the Johnny Cake Center for food pantry supplies in the amount of $25,000, and then the Warm Welcome House for kitchen operational expenses of $50,000. So our total grant request for the state of Rhode Island would be $432,500. The planning department had the first public hearing associated with these. The second was held by the town council. Any decisions were tabled to an upcoming town council meeting. But these need to move forward through the planning board with regards to compliance with the town's comprehensive community plan. So we've prepared a draft motion for your consideration. If there are any additional questions, we're available to attempt to answer them.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, could you just talk a little bit about how these are compatible with the comp plan?
So with regards to the Kingston Library and roof replacement, with regards to consistency with the comprehensive community plan, there are sections in there with regards to serving the membership within the community as well as lower economically established individuals within the community, and having the roof replaced allows them to continue to keep a conditioned space for the residents of the community, which is consistent with maintaining public property within the comprehensive community plan. That would be the same for the South Kingstown Senior Center, again, serving your population, maintaining your existing infrastructure as it relates to investment within the community. The third and fourth, the Johnny Cake Center and the Warm House, fall within a number of criteria, from community activism, economic development, even though you may not think that a food pantry is economic development. It's economic development for certain people within the community that allows them to be active participants within the community and strive for a good economy when some basic necessities are supplied by the public sector or public-private partnerships.
Thanks, Jim.
Again, the overall goals are community activism as well as community upkeep in the capital program.
Jamie, the only thing I'd ask is the Warm Center also runs activities in other areas such as Westerly. Did their application specifically call out that this money would be used in
The
the
money's,
South Kingstown operation?
To be used internal within South Kingstown.
And that's called out. Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question, just so I understand how this works? Are you asking for a grant for $432,000? And then if the entire $432,000 isn't granted to us, then,
Yeah, so I can explain the process. So the municipality was allowed to submit 3 requests on the municipal side, and they're choosing to submit 2, and that's the roof replacement and the parking lot. Town council is going to have to rank those, and those will go into a competitive portal. So they're not lumped all together. We were allowed to submit 3 on the nonprofit side, and they're submitting 2. There were only 2 that came forward, and those will be grouped in the nonprofit side competitively against the entire state. I should say, minus a few of the communities. There are a few communities who manage their own community development block program. Providence, as an example, is giving money directly, and then they run an internal program. The majority of the communities are in a competitive process for state funds.
so the 2, say Johnny Cake and Warm House, will be lumped together?
And they'll be competing against any applications from Charleston, Lincoln.
But if you didn't receive funding for both, then the ranking is to determine which of the programs
Town council will rank them.
would not receive as much as it had asked for.
Again, there's a municipal side and then a non-municipal side. So town council will have the duty to rank.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion on the memo from Brian.
Just motion to approve?
You should read it.
On this one.
All right, I'll make the motion. At a meeting held on July 24th, 2023, in the South Kingstown Town Council chambers, the Planning Board of the Town of South Kingstown reviewed the proposals contained in the program year 2022 Small Cities Community Development Block Grant application and has been given the opportunity to comment on said proposals. The Planning Board certifies that, to the best of its knowledge, the activities proposed are not in conflict with the general policies set forth in the Comprehensive Community Plan of the Town of South Kingstown.
We have a motion from Paul. Do we have a second?
Before that, I think he said the 24th. I believe it's the 25th. He might have been reading from the first memorandum.
Yes.
Okay, as amended, July 24th, 25th.
Oh, there's this one.
As amended, yes. Do we have a second?
I'll second
Is there a
that.
Second from Joe. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I believe we need to revisit item D2 on the agenda for 485 High Street. The applicant did submit a request to combine conceptual master and preliminary plan, but in the midst of talking, I missed it.
Everyone get that?
Yes,
Yeah.
So they are asking for,
glad I asked. Glad I asked.
excuse me? They're asking to combine the 2 stages of review.
And from staff's perspective, it's completely reasonable to do so. It wouldn't necessarily make any sense to bring them back for a master plan review of an adaptive reuse.
Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion that the applicant be allowed to combine the 2 stages of review for the 485 High Street project.
We have a motion from Joe. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Susan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. And you'll reach out to them tomorrow, let them know. Next item is election of officers, nominations.
May I make a nomination? I would like to nominate Maria Mack to continue her role as chairman of the board.
I'll second that.
I will nominate, oh, do we need to vote on that and then move on?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
I will nominate Joe, I forgot your last name, Joe Murphy,
Is there anyone else that wants the job?
for vice chair.
I guess hearing
Someone like
none.
to second that?
I'll second that.
Second from Liz. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. And secretary?
I don't know, do Liz or Robin want that job to be secretary of the board?
You're doing such a fine job.
It's so much work.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Paul. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now back to report of the administrative officer. Jamie?
Madam Chair, just probably one primary item tonight. The town council has asked me to reach out to you to let you know they would like you to come back and continue the discussion at their first meeting in September. That is scheduled for September 11th. And it's my understanding, or my recommendation also, that we put an agenda item on your work session so that you can discuss what you want to discuss with the town council, which in essence will be 3 weeks after your work session meeting.
Can I just ask that we have room for everybody at the table?
We
next
will-
time? Okay.
Understood?
Like this?
Yeah. Well.
Great.
And again, maybe a work session, so it may come in an L shape, so there may be a few seats with your back to the audience, but it'd be another row. So you're at a table facing council.
So that, the 11th is a Monday.
And again, I know, moving forward with the rezoning of Tower Hill, affordable housing, just the general state of zoning and development processes through the town are at the forefront of at least their discussions and agenda.
Okay. And perhaps we could, as we discussed earlier with regard to the HDC, perhaps something that we can add to our next work session is how we can better communicate and utilize skills within the varied boards and commissions to help us achieve our goals. There are things that were in our annual work plan. I recall at least a couple of them that were advised to be sent in the direction of the Conservation Commission and perhaps the Sustainability Committee. We have also in the past asked for assistance or research from the Affordable Housing Collaborative, so it makes sense for us to kind of go through that and see how we can better achieve our goals working in partnership with assistance from the other boards and commissions. Everyone okay with adding that to a future, probably next work session?
Absolutely.
Great. Anything else? Anything from legal? Good. Anything else from board members? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
That was a long pause.
You want to stay?
Motion from Joe, second from
Paul.
Paul. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Boy, these long meetings are killing me.
How about that night we were here past midnight?